Hello, people. How are you today? Hope you're enjoying yourself wherever you may be. Let's talk about the situation in Nigeria. Not obviously not everything that's wrong with Nigeria, because there's quite a lot, wrong with Nigeria. But let's talk about the identical situations that have developed in the last few weeks, few days actually. So the first one had to do with a Fuji musician or artist, called Kwam. And in a nutshell, the regulations, airline regulations, you cannot carry liquid that is more than 100 ml, and you have to display it in a transparent, bag, so that the security agents can understand what's going on, and they can sanction you to either take it in or leave it behind. And he wouldn't take that because he's a Nigerian big man, and that led to some kind of fracas, and it threw this so-called liquid that the airline operatives are saying it's alcohol, but he's saying is water. Threw it in the face of the pilot, and subsequently it was thrown out of the aircraft. But he went around and tried to stall the flight itself. So that was it. And just yesterday or today, there was another incident of, this time, an unknown quantity, like is in the, if you know the Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, pyramid, you could say Wasi is further along, well, she's at the base of the society organization. So she also refused to, for one reason or the other, refused to leave the plane. And when she was accosted by flight attendants, she went on to assault a fellow female or woman, they're both women, and she assaulted her, and she had to be carried, from the plane down to the tarmac. So that is the nutshell. But these are, for me, the symptoms of a society that is in decline, and a society that is dying, or near what is called the terminal stage. So if you understand a bit of healthcare, terms they use for cancer. So you have stage 1, stage 2, and then the later stages, they call it the terminal, stages. And that is when usually there's really nothing, to be done. It's just to put such patient on a palliative care, mode, and wait for the inevitable, and they do die. And what I want to say about that is, it's called civilizational collapse, and we've had all sort of warnings, or all sort of premonitions, all sort of inklings as to what our society is like and what is going to become of it, but everyone is living in denial. And since we are an acutely religious society, I like to take us back to that. This is not the first time we've witnessed this kind of scenarios. If I take you back to Kemet, that the white people call Egypt today, it was black African society, and that was the blueprint that everybody's using now. But let's leave history alone for now. So in Kemet, there were pantheon of gods, just like you have in the Yoruba spiritual system, today. Pantheon of gods. You have Ogun, Shango, yeah. So it's like a consortium of different gods, and they're all avenues, to appease this big, God that nobody knows and nobody has ever seen before. So now, it wasn't the emergence of, like every civilization, it was not the emergence of Greece, the Hellenic, civilization that actually, and that brought down the Egyptian order, the Kemetic order. It was like an implosion from within, and some of those things we'll discuss, some of those things that bring about the end of a civilization. So first thing that happens is that your spiritual compass is taken away from you. So what happened in Kemet, if you know the story of Akhenaten, was that that was the first time we have about monotheism, and the what you call Exodus, was just basically, he said, I'm doing away with the pantheon of gods. I am going to be the god, and I'm going to start a new religious order. And then there was confusion, and what happened then was eventually he lost it. He died, and when he died, the priesthood, there are over 80,000 priests in Kemet at the point, and there are as many temples, and you go to do your worship. And because Pharaoh, so there's always a power tussle, and because the Pharaoh or the Ptah, they are called the Ptahs, the English or the Anglicization of that is a Pharaoh. The Pharaoh thought, they felt that, okay, if a new Pharaoh is going to emerge now, we need to be in control. And so that started, that power tussle that led to the disintegration of the moral codes, the spiritual codes, the social codes of ethics, of life, of living in Kemet. But what I wanted to point out is that when there is a civilizational collapse, it usually starts with your spirituality. So I don't mean if you equate spirituality to mean the codes of Christianity or the codes of Islam or the codes of Ishashe or whatever it is, but spirituality is more than that. It's kind of bigger than that, but it's not. It's a subject for today. What happens is that the priests, started to fight the organized, power, and within themselves they started to collapse. They started to take money more seriously, and they started to take material things more seriously. And when that allowed, all of these internal wranglings allowed, it brought about the weakness of Kemet and allowed enemies to strengthen. And when eventually Kemet collapsed and was overrun by the new superpower at that point in time, which was Greece. Obviously, when Alexander died, 4 generals, Ptolemy stayed back in Egypt, and that is the essence of everything that you see about as white and Arabic about Egypt today. That's where it stems from. Anyway, it was on record, so if you want to read the accounts, I could provide it. But what happened was, it was on record that priests started to rob the tombs of the pharaohs. They started to sell secret, knowledge. They sold it off, and what happened was the line between morality was blurred. So there was no right, there was no wrong. Everything was Machiavellian. It's a means to an end. We saw the same thing in the Roman Empire, arguably the greatest military superpower that we've seen. Nowadays, that people use all of these gadgets, that can build things and all of that. So Rome did not collapse, as it's been said. Rome exploded from within, and its corruption and all of these things that we spoke about. At some point, the emperors, initially started off as a republic, and then it became a dictatorship, and the dictators started to equate themselves to the position of gods. And in doing that, there was no reason. So it's either you agree that they are God, or you are killed, and all of these things are happening. So if you look at it down that road, is the same thing that happened with every civilization. It's the same thing. So I think it's a cycle. But at least we also observed this. Everybody is familiar with the Yoruba Empire, that was built by Oyo and Ife. It was just the same decay, internal decay that happened. So I needed to do all of this backgrounding to let you know, understand what is going on with Nigeria and the Nigerian society, because everybody is just flapping, and not understanding what is really happening to them. Things are not good, or now they're looking for messiahs in politicians who are also victims of situation that is happening, and really nothing is going to get better. You can pray from now till whoever comes from heaven comes from heaven. It's never going to happen. I can assure you that. So in the Oyo Empire, we knew what really happened. It was not that the Fulani could actually put a dent on the power of the Oyo Empire, the Yoruba Empire. It was because of this greed, decay, loss of spirituality, loss of morality. We knew that the Alafins of those days would take people's wives at will. Might was right, and all of these things happening. So essentially, we know. I've only got just a few minutes. That civilizational collapse is always due to these things, but let's explore those things. So the idea that spirituality dies, morals decline, and distinction between right and wrong blurs, they are all signs of civilizational decline. And for today, there are so many thinkers and so many people who have explored this area academically. But today we're just going to use Oswald Spengler's, definition of civilizational collapse. So in Oswald Spengler, so it's OSWALD SPENGLER. That is Oswald Spengler. So he describes this civilization, the civilizational, when a civilization enters a terminal stage, it defines as a period of decadence, and there's a loss of guiding ideals and moral direction. And all of this can lead to widespread confusion, disorientation of the wider society, and a focus on superficial pleasures rather than deeper meaning, which contributes to societal breakdown. So, I'll come back to Nigeria, but let's break this down. All of those things I have suggested, all of those things that Oswald Spengler have mentioned there, let's break down the concept. So the loss of guiding ideal, a civilization's decline can be marked by a shift away from shared spiritual or moral values that once provided a unifying purpose. So when I say Nigeria is not a nation, people often think that I hate this. No. Look, at no point has Nigeria had what we call a big idea of what Nigeria is. No point. Or do we have a shared spiritual or moral value system that that we all subscribe to? So for those who don't know, Nigeria, it was formed at the point at which the Portuguese were trading in everywhere for like 400 years, and then the British came around and said, we're going to seize this country. At the point the British came to seize the country, the Yorubas were having a major battle with the Fulanis and with themselves as well. There was some kind of internecine wars going on, and that framework, they just stitched it together for colonial purposes. So if they claim that they give you rail system or roads or whatever it is to siphon off all of your resources, back to the home country. So they kind of like coupled together in Nigeria, like your local mechanic, will couple together your car when it doesn't know what to do with the car. When his knowledge base is not able to fit the car. I drove a 5 Series in Nigeria, and I saw a lot of with this. They were just, we know the problem, and then they will dabble into so many things. Your car is worse off than when you actually, gave them the car to fix for you. So that's exactly what happened with Nigeria. And since independence, at no time have we sat down together to say, what is the organizing idea that brought us together? No, not one time. Everybody's just in a race, to make money. It's just a massive rat race in which winners and losers are random. So it's not based on whether you're brilliant or you're good or you're put in so much. Everything is random. Everything is random. Trust me. So we don't have that. So the second thing, that when you have spiritual value breakdown and moral value breakdown, the next thing you have is moral decay and confusion. Because the lines between good and bad are now blurred, what happens next is nobody knows what to do right. So the guys who wants to do the right things, they end up being the losers. And the guys who are doing the wrong things end up to be the winners. And that is confusing, because you really don't know if to be good or to be bad. So without a strong moral framework, the ability to discern right from wrong can be weakened, leading to a state of moral decay and widespread confusion within the society. And that leads to another thing that you can see with as soon as you enter Nigeria, you see these things. It's called focus on base pleasures. If you open up your social media sites, what do you see? Skits. Because the government is not interested in running the country so that people can get gainful employment and lead a cohesive family life and have these guiding principles, and not be confused about what really is. Okay, sorry, my DJI is going mind of his own with this. Yeah. Okay, so what I was saying is, you must have seen in the Nigerian context, you must have seen a great deal of exhibition of hedonism. And the funny thing with that is, you observe it across the socio-economic divide. So you see, the super rich are only interested in pleasuring themselves, and the guys who are on the other side of the economic divide, also, when they make some money through clean means or unholy means, want to also, they call it enjoyment, but they're given to base pleasures. So people might seek solace in more immediate and sensual pleasures, adopting escapism as a coping mechanism for the emptiness and meaninglessness they experience. So this is what we say a lot of the times when we look at, I'll give you a simple example. You have many rich people, rich folk that are dying of common medical problems in Nigeria, and they don't have the intelligence to establish functional hospitals, not even for everybody, just for the fellow billionaires, and have a simple subscription model to run the hospital. So there was a senator who could not raise just $30 million to keep himself alive, ex-senator. So he died just like that. So this is some of the things we're talking about. So, but when he was in power, when he was raking in the money, when he was stealing it, and was filling his coffers, what did he do? What do they do? You see girls who have not done a single day's job in their lives, owning so many luxurious apartments in Abuja, in Lagos, wherever, in Port Harcourt, all that they got from sleeping around, with their benefactors. So this is the mechanism. It reveals the emptiness and meaninglessness, and there's something we call conspicuous consumption. When you're given to conspicuous consumption, and it shows the world that is all you live for. So the purpose of wealth and money in Nigeria is just to do three things: sexual pleasures, material indulgence, and oppression of the fellow, citizen. That's what happens totally. So, and in this, people forget, who they are, because I'll tell you what suffers in all of this. Let's just explore one more before we, start to round up. Once you have a society in which there's a loss of spiritual and moral values, and you have no strong moral framework to discern between right and wrong, it leads to confusion. And that confusion is when people get by. Everything they get in terms of materiality is spent on base pleasures. And within that sort of society, you have a general sense of disorientation and a weakening of the society's ability to maintain order and distinguish between harmful and life-reaffirming actions. That's what happens. So does this paint Nigeria for you? Of course, I'm not saying this happens only in Nigeria, but it does give you an idea of what is happening to you and what is happening in your society. We have a society in which all you need to do is get rich. I know a lot of societies. Okay, let's take the UK. The UK is as corrupt as hell. But even within that corruption, there are certain notions that if you are going to come up with wealth overnight, you will have to provide your source of income. It's not so in Nigeria. All you need to do is either get into government, just show up with money, show up with cars, and nobody is allowed to ask any question. If you ask any question, you're beefing, you're hater, you're all of those. So now that's why you see your legal systems don't work. Your legal systems don't work. And when your legal system is not working, your economic system is not going to work. Because for people to invest, their money in a society, they need to know this works. So I'm not going to go into business with a lady who is sleeping around with the man with power and money who is able to use the system against me. Or you have foreign investors who come in, see what is happening, and they only sign deals that allow them to repatriate their money once they make the profits. They won't reinvest. They won't think long term. They only think short term. This is what you guys do. I'm actually always amazed by the number of people who just get news delivered to them and they start to shout for joy without anything. They don't have anything. They don't have a skin in the game at all. They will tell them, foreign direct investment is going to be this and that, and they're going to be, and you just welcome them. They're not stupid. You are stupid. I can tell you that for free. So Now, let's even look at how society confuses you and how it treats all of these things that I'm talking about. So, check how the two incidents, Kwam 1 and whatever lady on Ibom here, I don't know her name. You know, Kwam 1 actually represented a clear and present danger to the life of over 250 people in that plane. Do you know that he was given all the time and chance to carry out his illegality? And even when the airline, trust me, the airline came out with his own position, they actually, I think it's right. As a pilot, you cannot endanger the life of anybody regardless of what they've done. Unless, of course, they are terrorists. And that is the only way you can save everybody in the flight, including yourself. That's the only time you're allowed to do, that kind of thing. Now, the airline came out and suspended immediately the pilot. They did nothing about Kwam 1 or Wasiu because they feel it's got some kind of leverage in society. That was what happened. And again, it took the minister to come out and say, hey guys, if you're going to suspend your pilot, you also need to hand out a no-fly injunction against Kwam 1 until, the matter is settled or the investigations are carried out fully. Now, with this other lady, she was not the problem when the plane took off. She was only a problem after the plane had landed. So she was not putting the life of anybody in danger. But was she wrong in the way she went about? Yeah, she's done something that she should go to jail for. You cannot assault people. You cannot slap them. And then again, with all of these things I've told you about the loss of guiding ideal, moral decay and confusion, focus on base pleasures and disorientation and decadence in society when it's in collapse, it means that violence is often the go-to want to solve our problems. It's violence. It means your legal systems, they've broken down. Your cultural systems, they've broken down. Like in the Yoruba culture, there's a concept of omoluabi. It talks all about self-regulation. That is what it means, self-regulation. What you need to do, how you need to present yourself, how you need to enter into business, how you need to relate with others. Those are guiding principles that is not enshrined in some legal book or legal rules, but it's expected that is your cultural code. So all of those is in collapse. So that's why so it's the same thing with the Hawujale, who became a king on the basis of being an Isheshe person, and then suddenly changed the terms of reference into some kind of Islamic, order. So all of these things is a sign of confusion, is a sign of a civilization in collapse. And when it's happening, you need to know. So that's why I say to people, as an innovation manager, I'll tell you, I've said it so many times, I've written it so many times, but people do not understand where I come from. See, there's no emotional outburst that you can get into, and there's no force you can make. There are only two ways to change any system. Only two ways exist in the whole world, and those two ways is that you use human intelligence and agency to change things that are wrong. But for you to change things, you must admit and accept that you've done certain things wrong, and these are the areas that are wrong, and that in bringing about this change, you have to think about in terms of the system, not in terms of individuals. So that is number one way. The number two way is that you do nothing, you patch it, you just go with the flow, and then nature will reset everything. So if I were to explain this, because Nigeria is religious, so let me use religious things to explain it. So those who are Christians understand some stories in the Bible in which God says to this king, if you walk this way, walk that way, use your intelligence of what you know about this system that we have together, this spiritual system, it's going to be well with you. You're going to do very well. But if you do not, if you just say, okay, I'm not going to, this system is going wrong, we're doing wrong things, and we're not going to change it, this is what's going to happen. So when the children of Israel ended up, the biblical children of Israel, of course, ended up in Babylon, that's exactly what happened. Because the system reset itself, basically. So it's the same thing like if you keep building in an area that's a natural water system, for nature, and you sand fill it and you build on it and all of that. So if you go to Lekki, this is what I'm saying. All of this, Lekki is fantastic, blah blah blah. You're always going to compete with nature because it's going to reset one way or another. So you don't even have the kind of flood defense that London has. And the London flood defense, they tell you when you're buying houses and you want insurance, it's to a certain degree. This is just, if nature decides to break it down, that's it. You're not going to stop that. Ask the Dutch people, they'll tell you all of these things. So that's exactly what is happening with us, and you're seeing that disorientation, decadence, confusion, moral decay. Every day you tune into Nigerian news, it's either you're hearing the story of some deranged human being who still believes that to make money he needs to kill someone else and use part of their anatomy, for some kind of rituals. In this day and age, in 2025, some people will still think that. Do you know that those kind of people should be sectioned and placed in a mental asylum? That's what they need, and people still believe all kind of story. You go to a church and someone is going to tell you, by this time tomorrow you're going to be a billionaire. You understand? It's I don't know. I've been part of this before. I've witnessed it. I've seen it firsthand. That it's mental health problems. So all of this thing is happening right before your eyes, and you're there praying. Your prayer is not going to solve anything. Now, anywhere you call black white and white black, essentially, if you're honest today in Nigerian society, if you're an honest individual trying to do things by the book, you are going to fail miserably. That's what the system is telling you. And that's why you see all of these kids, they come on social media, they don't have, they lack respect, lack basic human interactional intelligence, because they don't have it. There's no system to teach it, and there's no system in place to reward what is right and reward what is wrong. Even your kids, I've been sent videos of primary school kids going on proms, even secondary school kids going on proms in Nigeria. I've got a kid here. He's not going to I'm not getting a limo. If he wants to go by yourself. I'm not going to all of this fanfare, all of this bells and whistle. It's none of my problem. Look, you're doing all of this. So that I don't get verbose. The society is changing. Education is changing. You get a certificate, you celebrate it. What kind of nonsense is that? Guys, I'm not trying to belittle whatever you do. What I'm saying is that we're moving into a world in which robots and AI are going to be responsible for at least 50% to 60% of all the production that could ever be done. A lot of people are going to be jobless. Straight up. It's not playing out in the West. Even China is having some problems. So that's why they're talking about the pop agenda and all of this Agenda 2030. That's what's driving it. Then you get a certificate. So, do you know how many smart people that I know who are smarter than myself in school, who are just doing basic jobs today because they don't have connections? And do you know how many delinquent, confused students that I have seen that have been helped, into positions of authority in Nigeria? Do you get all of these things? So, anyways, both was you a system that places crooners, musicians at the top of the intellectual food chain of a people is a system in decline. Michael Jackson is arguably the best musician ever in the world, in the known history of the world. Do you see that is part of a think tank, or is accorded too much respect within that society? Do you see Michael Jackson, in bed with presidents or governors in America? I know a lot of these, OGs in grime music in the UK and all of that. Skepta, for instance. Do you see the mayor of London hobnobbing with Skepta? So look, you don't even know that your society is debased already. You don't have a clue. And that's why when you see things and when you react to things based on your confused knowledge, and you conflate so many things together, it's only in black societies that you have entertainers becoming the intellectual, bastions of knowledge or reference in a society. Only in black societies. The Beatles are fantastic, global or everything, but they are just within that realm of entertainment. That's it. In the British society, they're not. if they're talking about all of this, you want to be royalty, you even have access to royalty, not Wasiu. Do you get me? So we know this guy. We know him from when he was a young person. It's always been thuggish and all that. All of that. Even Oluoma, all of these names. Seriously, in a serious society, under Awolowo, do you see all of... See, I can go into... Let me look at my time. I got 1 minute left. I could go into history for you. The Yakuza in Japan, the mafia in America, even here that the underworld in the UK in Victorian times and all of that. They always used to do the dirty jobs or dirty works of governments, and they're never seen together in public. The moment you start to see them together in public, we're talking about civilizational collapse. That is the facts. So that's it for me today. I'll be, in my spare times, I'll try to delve into some of these more difficult conversations that we have in Nigeria, and I will have to say my mind regardless of what people think, because as we say in Yoruba, Ogede Mbaje Elunkmo, the plantain fruit is decaying and you think it's ripening. No, it's not. It's gone. It's festering with bacteria. It's decomposing. That's what it is. So thank you. I do hope you have a fantastic, lovely day.